Please, Kathleen Margaret.
We're going to get started here. These people have been here for almost 45 minutes. Oh dear.
Will Sarah be able to get in that door, or is she still?
I have just a couple announcements before we start. I want to read you a note that I got. Dear Sages, thank you so much for the party and send-off with the beautiful flowers and the sentiment expressed so beautifully by Greg Suter. The slippers and remote will be used later. I have joined the gym and am taking boxing lessons and lifting weights. I'll really be ready for the slippers and remote. I love Sage's group, planning team, keep up the good work, and everyone attend as many meetings as possible. Love, Steve. And I also wanted to remind you all to take part in any transition meeting that comes up. There's going to be one Sunday after church in the fellowship hall. We'll be talking about the worship service, and this is your chance to have a voice in the direction that we take. So try to attend that. And I would like to, and I also would like to welcome Wally. This is his first Sages meeting. And our group today is the Wildlife, Liberty Wildlife. We have two volunteers who have brought us some surprises. This is Peggy and Sarah, and they're going to tell you about their group.
Hi, thank you for inviting us. We're delighted to be here today because we get to do one of our favorite things, which is share some of the wonderful desert wildlife that we all live with here in our beautiful state. My name is Peggy, as you said. This is Sarah. We are both volunteers at Liberty Wildlife. Let me take about 5 minutes just to tell you a little bit about who we are, when we started, what direction we're going, things that we do, and services we offer. Liberty was founded in 1981 by local veterinarian, Dr. Kathy Orr. At the time, those of you who have lived here a long time know that the valley was really expanding dramatically, moving out in all directions with developments, communities. And more people were bringing injured wildlife in to Dr. Orr, saying, I found this injured hawk, or I found this injured coyote, or I found this injured dove. And there was no place to take it. So Kathy decided, since treating wildlife is very different than treating your average pet guinea pig or cat or, or parrot, that there needed to be a place dedicated to wildlife treatment. So she started Liberty founded Liberty as a nonprofit in 1981 in her garage. The first year, the story goes, I wasn't around then, but they had 8 cages in her garage. Saw 85 animals the first year and had an operating budget of $435. Wow. We've grown just a tidge since then. These days we take in anywhere between 3,500 and 4,500 native animals every year for treatment. Wow. Of those, we are successfully able to rehab and release approximately close to 60%, which is about twice the national rehab average. So we're very proud of that. We have over 350 volunteers, and we have built our facility with the loving hands of volunteers out over almost all of Kathy's property, close to an acre, and we're bursting at the seams. We need more room, and I'll talk more about that later. So the first couple of years were just strictly rehab. People would bring in injured animals, we'd care for them, we'd release them whenever possible. Then came a day when a gentleman brought an injured found out a great horned owl, and this guy came and got out of his pickup with this towel wrapped under his arm and went into Kathy's garage and put it down on the table and unrolled it, and out flopped this blood-covered great horned owl. And Kathy looked at the guy and said, what happened? And he started crying. And this is an older gentleman in his hunting fatigues. He'd been out hunting. He said, I shot it. And it fell out of the tree, and I walked over, and it opened its eyes, and it looked at me, and I touched its soft feathers, and I knew I had to try to save it because I'd done something very wrong. And in the meantime, during the time he was telling the story, unfortunately the owl died. But that owl gave rise to our education department, because there was a light bulb went off. Because the last thing he said was, if I'd known how beautiful it was, I never would have shot it. And we went, you know what? People need to be able to see these creatures up close and learn to appreciate them. So we started taking some of the animals that we had rehabbed, had gotten healthy again, but were incapable of taking care of themselves in the wild for one reason or another. They were unreleasable. Training them to the fist, to the glove. We started with birds of prey primarily, and taking them out and doing educational programs like we're doing here today. So the first couple of years, it was 2, 3, 4 programs. Now we're doing over 720 annually, all over the state of Arizona, and in fact, in some instances out of state. And it's all free of charge, and it's all done by volunteers. So we have rehabilitation, we have education. The third branch of Liberty is called research and conservation, and that's done by biologists and volunteers. We try to help mitigate the negative impact that people have on wildlife by moving into their habitat. We bring things like traffic and roads and buildings with big windows and electric lines, all kinds of things. So we work with all the major utilities in the state to help with their raptor protection program to prevent electrocutions on these high wire electric wires and stuff, because the big raptors can touch more than one line, so we help with that. We help developments where they're going in, like where they put in all the big solar panels south of town here. We did relocated, removed all the burrowing owls that were living on that property prior to that construction going on. We're available to answer any wildlife questions at all by anybody who calls and asks. A lot of corporations, builders, and so on and so forth. And then the fourth arm of Liberty just came into existence about 1.5 years ago. And we are acting as a non-eagle feather repository. In other words, we're a source for Native Americans to legally obtain feathers and bird parts from birds that are protected under the Migratory Bird Act. Since the early 90s, they had been able to obtain eagle feathers, golden eagle feathers, bald eagle feathers from U.S. Fish and Wildlife's feather bank in Utah. But they had no legal way of obtaining the other ones, like red-tailed hawktails or owl wings or all kinds of different bird parts and feathers that they use for their healing ceremonies and their religious ceremonies. So if there's no legal way to do it, what's going to happen? They're going to be taken illegally. And it occurred to our director, Megan Mosby, that we have a kind of constant supply of just those things that we've had to destroy because it's illegal to anybody else to obtain them. So we approached Fish and Wildlife, and we are one of 2 entities in the United States that are acting in a pilot program as a non-eagle feather repository, and it's been extraordinarily successful. We have birds that we keep on our property that molt naturally every year, so we have that as a source of feathers. We have birds that come in and they don't survive, so we have an entire carcass. So the Native Americans now, what they do is they go to Fish and Wildlife, they get a permit, they show that they're a federally recognized tribal member, and they submit the application to us and we fill the order. Again, we do this all with volunteers, and we don't get any reimbursement even for postage, which is kind of a crying shame, but there you go. So we have 2 full-time paid staff members, about 5 part-time contract staff members, and over 350 volunteers that make all those different things happen. So we rely on donations. We don't get any government funding, and we rely on just the generosity of the community and what grants we can apply for, and so on and so forth. Any questions?
Yes. What is your website for people who may want to give donations?
Okay, it is libertywildlife.org. And when we're finished here, you're welcome to come up. We have a newsletter. This is last year's 2011 newsletter. We're in the process of writing our fall one this year. It comes out once a year. So please take a copy of this. You're welcome to it. And here's a business card that gives our website and our contact hotline phone number. If you ever come across any wildlife that needs any help, you know who to call. Any questions about Liberty and what we do? Yeah.
I did get on your website and I was just overwhelmed
Wonderful.
by all the work you guys do constantly. Like you said, volunteers. That
We do a lot.
Kind of describes it. See what you guys do every day.
Every single day.
Constant feeding ladybirds.
Yeah.
You guys take everything.
And any native wildlife. We see, for the majority of what we see, probably, I would guess, 85% at least of what we see tend to be avian, tend to be birds, just because when they get hurt or injured, they're very obvious to the public. They're down on the ground, they're not flying, people see them, they find them, they bring them to us. Mammals and reptiles, amphibians tend to be a little more reclusive. When they're injured or sick, they tend to hide, and we just don't find them as often. But we do take in anything that's native.
I used to rescue a lot of animals when I was running. It was like, oh, bird, a duck, a hummingbird, and there was no place to go. So I would call, I had a duck person, I had a pigeon person, a hummingbird.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes
Yeah.
you would leave these off these strange people, the birds.
Some of us are kind of odd, those of us who work with animals.
It's nice that there's a centralized location.
It's a central location, and we do service the whole state of Arizona. So we have, one time last year we had a program going, literally an education program, in all 4 corners of the state. We do rescues from all 4 corners of the state, and it's quite a process, but it's very, very rewarding. And if you are still interested in rescuing, we can always use rescue transport volunteers. So see me afterwards or sign up online.
How do you deal with the psychological losing?
It's sad.
And
But
just go
you
on?
do the best you can. You absolutely do the best you can. Probably emotionally the hardest thing for those of us who do education is when we lose one of our longtime education birds. And that's really sad, and we all cry. We lost a California condor we were rehabbing last year, which made us both sad and angry because it was a needless death, and we'll talk more about why that happened and stuff. But yeah, you have to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So it's fun, it's rewarding. Anyway, we're going to be bringing out these guys one at a time. Sarah's going to start with the first one. These are all animals that are part of our permanent education collection that were deemed to be injured, non-releasable. So each animal's story is a little bit different, the reason they wouldn't survive in the wild, and we'll tell you about that. Now these birds are fully flighted, but they are going to be sitting on our gloves. They have little anklets and jesses, these little leather strips that are going to be attached to a leash attached to our gloves. So if the bird should flap its wings and do what we call bait, jump off the glove, please don't shriek and jump. Just sit still. It will come back up on the glove. We promise it won't come get you. We'll tell you everything we can think of to tell you about each individual bird, about its species in general, and we encourage questions anytime. So just raise your hand and ask away. We'll do them one at a time, and at the end we'll wrap up with what I fondly refer to as my trash talk, which is things that you as individuals can learn to do to help prevent a lot of the injuries that we see. And we hope you take those messages home and share them with your kids and family.
Good morning, everybody. We have a Peregrine Falcon here. This is going to be the fastest animal in the entire world, this guy right here. And this guy, they live all across the world. They're found on every single continent, actually, except for Antarctica. So they're very, very widespread throughout the earth. And these guys, this is going to be typical of what you find in the United States, about crow size, so not too big. They have that beautiful black slate gray on the back of them. And then you'll see that really rich cream color on the front with those black stripes along the belly. And there's some really cool features of falcons that they use that is specific to falcons. So for example, see those stripes under his eyes? If anybody has ever watched sports, you'll see the football players or baseball players have those same black stripes, and that's used to reflect sun glare. So an animal like the peregrine falcon, which is going to be a fast flyer, it's going to need the best eyesight while it's hunting. So those black lines will reflect sunlight. Another cool adaptation for the peregrine falcon is actually in its nose. Because it flies so fast, they've been clocked at the fastest 283 miles per hour in a dive. They have to circulate their air in a special way as they breathe. So if you've ever been on an airplane, you'll see the engine has a cone to help circulate the air. The peregrine's nose has the same cone in its nostril to help circulate air as it's flying so it can breathe more efficiently as it's hunting its prey. This type of bird will eat other birds, something as big as a duck. These guys have been known to go after pheasants, pigeons, doves. Those are some also common peregrine falcon items as well. And these guys, speaking of ducks, they're also called the duck falcon. They actually make the noise similar to a duck whenever they are out. And so they think that's a lure, tricks the ducks into thinking it's just another duck hanging around, nothing to be concerned about. And then here comes a peregrine prowling into the ducks in the pond. It's got those very long toes to help for grabbing its prey. And what they do when they hunt is they will go into a dive and they ball up those feet actually, and they strike the bird at impact. And that impact will either kill it instantly or at least knock it unconscious for the falcon to go and retrieve it and then eat it for its dinner. And so a lot of different things come together to make this bird an excellent hunter and also making it the fastest animal in the world too. And I know the Air Force for several decades has looked into how this bird flies and what it does to help use for their own airplanes to make them more efficient as well. And another interesting story about these birds is back in the 60s, DDT poisoning. Sound familiar? They were making the eggshells thin. So not only were mom birds, when they were sitting on the eggs, they were crushing them, but even just the embryo growing in the egg was too heavy and the eggshell would break. And so that DDT was causing, no new babies were really being born because of the eggshell problems. And by 1968, all breeding pairs in the East United States had vanished. And so, we had to take it upon ourselves to help these birds. DDT was banned in 1971. And then the Endangered Species Act came in 1972. And for the past 25 years after that, over 4,000 pairs were released back into the wild with the help of the Peregrine Fund and over 28 states. And in 1999, these guys were taken off the endangered list. So a great success story about how coming together, to protect the bird, that's something that, you don't expect for a chemical to cause harm, but sometimes they do. And this is an example of the eggshells not allowing breeding to go on, but we all came together and were able to successfully bring back this bird to a healthy population. Any questions about Ace here?
Where did this bird come from?
Ace was brought to us back in 2010. He actually got into a car collision. And so he has his wing amputated, and so he's unable to fly. It's only a partial amputation, but still he doesn't have the flight capacity to be able to go out and hunt. So he's been with us ever since, going out to programs, teaching people about peregrines.
He looks like he adores you.
They're very, you can tell, they're curious. They like to look around.
Does he know he can't fly? I mean, does he still attempt?
They won't try to go long distances. They are aware that they won't be able to make it, but they will hop, from perch to perch. But they won't try to fly away. They do realize that they won't be able to go.
Over time, do you find that they get tamer? I mean, they're easier to handle?
You've
been doing this longer.
They're never really tame. They're always a wild bird. They always have the instincts, but they learn, they habituate. They learn to trust you. And all of the animals that we work with as education handlers, the process is a slow, steady one. We start out with practice partners, with people who have experience handling that individual bird, and you learn how to handle it in the same fashion. So every bird is handled by every education volunteer in the same manner. So the bird always knows what to expect, even if the face changes.
How do you spell that?
Peregrine, Peregrine. We work with them individually with a practice partner 3 times, and then we work with them solo 3 times, and then we have to give a presentation to become signed off on them. Now that being said, most of the birds we work with, as long as you're handling them in the same manner that everybody else does, they're generally pretty comfortable with it. Now there are some birds, in fact the next one I'm going to bring out, who is not like that. He definitely has preferences for particular people. They're just all different, they're all individual, yes.
So do they eat grain or?
No birdseed for these guys. They're strictly carnivores. He's a meat eater. All of the birds that we brought today are no fruits and veggies, so he's a hunter. They will eat, the peregrines primarily eat, falcons primarily eat other birds, but they will also eat small mammals, mice, ground squirrels occasionally.
Oh, sorry. I used to see falcons in Canto flying around, and they would smash into a palm tree, scatter the pigeons.
And then you can go out and nail the pigeon. That's it. This is Mother Nature's pigeon control. These guys are the ones you want flying downtown.
We need to raise more of these.
Well, in fact, since they've come back, they have adapted to living in cities, and they use the high-rise buildings in the same fashion that they use cliff faces out in the wild for their nesting ledges and for vantage to hunt from. And you will see them. My husband, who works in a law firm down on Central and Osborne, called me one day and said, I was just in a meeting and I saw a bird. And I said, well, good for you, honey. That must be exciting. She said, no, I saw a bird, a blackbird. There was a Peregrine Falcon that had landed on the ledge right outside the office where they were having their partners meeting and hunting pigeons.
So where do you get the food for them to eat?
Yeah, are they alive?
Sarah, you want to take it?
They actually no live feed for any of the animals. He gets quail, chicken. Actually, Hickman Farms donates chickens to us, and we have a local quail breeder as well where we get our quail from. But there is no live food. Some of the other animals that do eat mice, not the falcons, but we also get mice and rats prepackaged as well. And so they have special diets made for especially the education birds to make sure they're at a good weight and they're healthy, and also variety too in the diet. Because birds, when they don't get all the nutrients that they need, especially when they are younger and growing, it actually can cause bone deformities. And it's a disease or a syndrome called bendy bone. So basically, as they're growing without having these nutrients, the bones will bend and they break as they grow and they become deformed. We see wing problems, bow-leggedness in some of the birds.
I have an x-ray here. This is actually an x-ray of a young golden eagle that I did the rescue on. Somebody had him as a baby. He was only about 3 weeks old when we got him in. They had taken him illegally out of the nest and they were keeping him, and they had been, you can pass this around, but look at this is his right leg, and this is his left leg. You see that big bend in there? That was caused because when they fed him, they didn't give him whole food. And we'll talk more about, with the last bird that we get out, about eating whole food and why they need it and how their body processes it. But if they don't get that whole food in their real early development, when they're growing so rapidly, because they go from hatching out of the egg to adult size in about 14, 15 weeks, so they grow very, very quickly. Then their bones don't have the calcium that they need and the minerals for a strong bone and feather structure, and they get metabolic bone disease or bendy bone. So.
Do they have like, I want to say tame birds have that, where you have to have the great rich.
Okay, that's for seed eating. That's for seed eating birds. These guys, they have a crop, which is a muscular sac in their neck that when they'll eat very rapidly, because if you're out in the wild, you want whatever you're eating inside you as quickly as possible, because somebody else is going to come and get it if you don't. And it goes into a crop, which is a muscular sac that's high up in your chest, where it's balanced so they can still fly. And then when they get back to where they can rest and relax, and that crop contracts and forces it on. You guys ready for the next one? Otherwise, we're never going to get out here, folks. We've got a lot of time. Oh yeah, we get the whole.
You have to worry about disease. What if they die from a disease?
We freeze all of our carcasses ahead of time, so if there are any bacterial or viral infections, those will kill. They're taken care of. So these are I think you have to pay about 50 a piece for them. They're not free. But these are layers. They're beyond years, and so they have we have the weirdest shopping list you've ever seen. Our annual budget now, when I said the first year was $435, our annual budget now is about $500,000.
Wow.
And that's with only 2 vastly unpaid full-time employees and 5 part-time students. So it's mostly the food.
Do you get a lot of professional support from the veterinary community?
Yeah, we have several veterinarians who will volunteer their time and come in. We have vet night every Tuesday where they will come in and examine some of the birds that are beyond our capability to care with our medical staff. They volunteer, they donate surgeries, x-ray equipment, visual x-rays, stuff like that. And then we have some clinics that will donate us expired like saline solutions or needles or any other medical supplies that we might use. Okay, fantastic.
Do the veterinarian schools use you as a learning resource?
Yes, we do programs every year for, I just write down the name of it. There's a veterinary school here that we go to every year. Yes, what kind? You said it was a vulture. Who knows what kind of vulture? Turkey vulture. All right. Good job, guys. This is Bailey. Bailey is a turkey vulture. He is not a turkey, nor is he related to turkeys. Yeah, you're handsome. Actually, vultures' their closest relative, they found out doing DNA studies, are actually storks and ibises. They're most closely related to. Bailey came to us in 1985. Wow. Yeah. So I thought he belonged in the stage group. I thought he'd be appropriate. No, he's not. Oh, you're going to stretch a little turkey vulture yoga. Got to stretch because you've been in the box. So there you go again. Bailey is non-releasable, not because of physical injury, but because of a mental injury. Oh, you're so smart, though. You are. And it's not that he's a slow learner, but it's that he was born at the Phoenix Zoo. They had a pair of vultures that nested, laid eggs. The zoo handlers, for whatever reason, took the eggs away, incubated them, hatched them, and hand-raised the babies to be placed in other learning facilities. So it's important to talk about imprinting. A lot of people in the springtime especially, you get a windstorm and you find baby birds in your backyard. You'll find owls, you'll find hawks, you'll find all kinds of animals that have been orphaned. It is the biggest disservice you can do to try to raise them yourself. Because there is a developmental stage in these guys' lifetimes. He's just doing all kinds of stretching. As soon as they open their eyes and start focusing on what's going around them when they're babies, who they see and who they hear primarily as food is being delivered to them is who they imprint on or base their own identity on. It's like holding up a mirror to them and saying, okay, this is who you are, this is who you hang with, this is where food comes from. And that imprinting stage in their life, depending on the species, lasts anywhere from 2 to 3 days to 2 to 3 weeks. Okay? Once they get past that age in their life, whatever they've learned during that time period is then hardwired in their brain, and you cannot change it. Okay? So a bird that grows up, a bird of prey, or like a turkey vulture that grows up imprinted on people, although he's perfectly capable of finding his own food, his first inclination would be to seek out people and come down and say, okay, where's my food? And you don't want this guy coming down and landing on you in the parking lot at Walmart asking to be fed something dead. You know, it just doesn't work real well. You're going to show him. Thank you. Thank you. That's a built-in fan. Okay, turkey vultures. And thank you. Can you grab that? He's molting. Birds, once a year, they lose their feathers. They molt them. They drop corresponding feathers on each side so that they stay balanced throughout the molt so they can still fly, and they grow in the new feathers that are nice and clean and shiny. So he's preening himself right now and taking care of those feathers. Turkey vultures. I love this bird. They are so cool. These guys are meat eaters, just like birds of prey. Unlike birds of prey, though, they lack one ability. Birds of prey all have strong hooked beaks that they use to tear apart their meat. He's got that. They all eat meat and nothing else. That's true for him too. Birds of prey, though, have strong toes and long killing talons, strong feet that they catch and kill their prey with. Well, if you look at Bailey's feet, he lacks that. He's got chicken feet here. Yeah, I don't. That hurts his feelings, I think. His feet are basically for walking around on. They're not for killing. This guy is strictly a scavenger. He doesn't get to eat until he finds something that has already died. Have you guys ever seen the old Western movies or old Western cartoons and the vultures are circling the wagon train, so somebody must be dying? Not true. Unless you're good and dead and they're starting to stink, he's not going to come around. Okay?
Do they smell?
Strictly, yeah. Very good. That was going to be my second thing. You beat me to it. I don't know if you guys realize it or not, but most birds have virtually no sense of smell. Did your mother or your grandmother or a friend ever tell you if you find a baby bird, you can't put it back in the nest because mom and dad will smell it and they won't take care of it? Complete baloney. Not true at all. Most birds have virtually no sense of smell. So in the springtime, if you find a baby bird that's fallen out of its nest and it's not injured, the best thing you can do is to get it back up into the nest if possible. Turkey vultures, though, are the exception to the rule. These guys have a phenomenal sense of smell. You know, 1,000 times better than like even a wolf. in the wild would have, because that's what they depend on to locate their food. These guys are diurnal, they're active during the daytime, so generally when you see a turkey vulture, you're going to see him up soaring. He's going to spread those big wings, 6-foot wingspan, very stiff feathers, and if you see them up soaring, you'll see them kind of look like they're teetering side to side. Everything about these guys is built to conserve energy because they never know when or where their next meal is coming from. So he's up there soaring, he's not flapping, he's just riding the thermals. And if you look at him, just above that beautiful ivory-colored beak and that red part, you'll see he's got a hole that goes all the way through. Okay? His nostrils are located right above that hole. So when he's up there soaring, riding those warm air thermals, where do the thermals come from? Where do they start? On the ground and rise. Okay, so those thermals are bringing up any odors that are down below. So he has such a keen sense of smell that he can pick up the tiniest molecule of scent of something that's died from miles away and literally follow his nose until he finds his dinner or breakfast or lunch or whatever it is. In fact, other birds of prey and other vultures, like the black vulture, have learned by following a turkey vulture that looks like it's on a mission, or finding a group of them on the ground, there's food down there somewhere, and they will bully these guys off the carcass and actually steal it, and the poor guy who found it gets left with nothing.
They eat everything dead.
Anything. Anything. If it's dead, it's nummy. Nummy, 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 nummy. And people always say, well, do they like, the really stinky, rotten stuff? Well, it's the stinky, rotten stuff they're more likely to find using their smell. They would prefer something that's freshly dead. They're just incapable of killing their own food. So they have to wait till something dies. If you think about the bacteria that's in something that's been out in the sun and rotting for a while, would you want to eat it?
No.
I don't think so. It would make us, it would probably kill us.
Yeah.
These guys have such strong stomach acid, I've read that they're even capable of neutralizing anthrax bacteria.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing. So these guys eat all of that nasty bacteria-ridden stuff out there. It goes through their system and comes out the other end in the form of mute, which is what you call it, bird dew. Mute is a combination of solids and urates. So they, like I tell the kids, they don't go number 1 and number 2, they go number 1 1/2, and it all comes out the same place. By the time they mute, that mute is actually sterile. There's no bacteria left in it. So think of what a good job these guys do for us, keeping our planet a healthier and better place for us. So something to be grateful for them about. Why would they have a bald head?
Yes.
Why would Mother Nature design a bird with a bald head? Yeah.
Because they don't get it, as they're eating roadkill, they don't get the...
That's exactly right. If they had feathers up there, they've got their head down in the middle of whatever it is that's dead, eating all the good stuff, gooey stuff. If they had feathers, they would become very dirty, matted, they'd stay moist, that would be an environment that bacteria could grow in, it would be not very healthy for them. So by having a bald head, all he has to do is go out, sunbathe for a few minutes, dries it up, My husband, too, he says, Mother, God only made so many perfect heads and those he wanted to show off. So that's Bailey's thing. But they go out and they sunbathe, it all dries up, and then they reach their foot up there and they scratch it off and it all flakes off and they've got a clean and shiny head. If you look at his feet, see how they look kind of white, his legs and his feet? They're actually just as dark red as his head is. That white you're seeing on there is the dried uric acid crystals from his mute. Most birds, when they go to the bathroom, you're going to see them lift their tail and shoot it out back because they want to get it as far away from them and their nest or their roost or wherever they are as they can. Turkey vultures, though, are designed to basically mute directly down their legs. Now, what would the advantage be of that? Can you think of something?
Keep the bugs out?
No, not so much. Have you ever been a kid out and gotten your legs wet with a hose in the summertime to cool off? Eurohydrosis. It acts as a cooling system in the summer. But it also, if you think about them eating, they're walking around on this dead carcass, picking up all kinds of bacteria on their feet. Well, if he's got an open sore or a cut on his feet, it could very easily become infected. You guys ever use hand sanitizer? Remember I told you that strong stomach acid and sterile mute? Well, that mute is also very acidic, and it's also sterile. So he has his built-in leg and foot sanitizer. So by
Why don't you guys package that?
Somehow, I don't think there would be a really big market for that. Yeah, Bailey, I know, I love you too.
27-year-old.
Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge of how old they might live in the wild?
In the wild, these guys, general rule of thumb, he's just going to mute. There you go. Thank you, bud. The general rule of thumb is the larger the species, the longer lived they are. Okay. In the wild, these guys would be lucky to live mid, maybe late teens if they were lucky. But in captivity, all of these animals can live half again, sometimes nearly twice as long in captivity as they would in the wild, because they don't have all the threats, all the competition. They get regular food, they get health checkups, they're very well taken care of. So we're hoping to have them well into his 30s.
Other than humans, are there enemies of this?
These guys, they're kind of a big awkward bird, so if they're down on the ground, they're vulnerable to things like coyotes and bobcats and that sort of mountain lions. They have, in fact, they have kind of a unique defense. If he finds a carcass, he's going to eat as much as he can hold because he doesn't know where his next meal's coming from. So it's like you at Thanksgiving. He's going to gorge himself. So say he's found a carcass of some sort, he's eating it. It's his activity, the smell attracts the coyote. Coyote comes and says, stinky, dried up carcass, fresh turkey vulture. I think I'm going for the turkey vulture. What he will do is he'll actually turn around, face whatever's threatening him, regurgitate, throw up whatever he's eaten toward that bird, or toward that threat. It does two things for him. It lightens his load, so it makes it a little easier for him to flap and get off the ground and get away, but also distracts whatever it is that was threatening him. If you've ever smelled something that's been dead, try smelling something that's been dead that's been inside of the turkey vulture for a while. I mean, it is nasty. And it's also very acidic, so you get the acidic fumes that burn the mucous membranes in the predator's eyes and nose. Maybe the predator thinks, well, that's an easy meal, I'll eat this. I don't know. But it's a unique way of protecting themselves is by vomiting on whatever's threatening them.
To take off, do they have to kind of get a run?
They probably a couple of hops and a couple of flats, yeah. These guys, last thing I'll tell you about, and I got to shut up because we're never going to get through all the other animals, is I told you everything about them is designed to conserve energy. At nighttime, these guys will roost, and often they will roost in groups. What they do is they'll actually lower their body temperature up to 11 degrees at night because, again, it burns fewer calories. So in the morning, when you see these guys, if you're ever up at sunrise or out where the turkey vultures are, you're going to see them all with their wings spread, with their back to the sun. And that big, broad, black back and wing acts just like a solar panel. And it absorbs the heat, and it brings their body temperature up to where it needs to be, where they can become active. By the time they're warm enough, the warmer thermals are starting to rise, so all they have to do is flap once or twice, catch a thermal, and away they go. And they can go all day long riding thermal to thermal to thermal without hardly ever having to flap their wings. Yes?
Are you a completely separate operation from the Humane Society?
Yes, we have no connection to the Humane Society at all. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that treats strictly native Arizona wildlife, or migratory wildlife.
You mentioned the veterinarians that cooperate.
Oh, yes, it's Colorado.
Do you have them separate from the regular veterinarians, or?
They come volunteer their time at Liberty Wildlife. So we had Dr. Orr is a veterinarian. She's still the founder. She's still our primary veterinarian. But we have several others. There's a Dr. Driggs. There's Dr. Wyman and a few others that come in and assist us by allowing us to use their surgical facilities. We can do minor surgeries where we're at. But if it's anything more complicated, sometimes they'll let us use their facilities. Let me stick him back real quick. Or we can, there's a veterinary clinic that specializes in ophthalmology and eyes. So if we have an animal that has an eye injury, we can take it into them and they'll do the exam and figure out what the treatment should be. And so, but it's all voluntary.
Very good with doing what you're doing.
These are the travel boxes. At home at Liberty, all of the enclosures, they're called mews that we keep our birds in, are all designed to meet whatever that occupant's special needs are. So like an ace who has an amputated wing, he's got perches, but he's got ramps to go up to get up to the perch if he needs it. So they're all designed. Bailey is a fully flighted bird, so he's got a very large enclosure that's big enough for him to fly from end to end.
How many other volunteers do you have on those full-time?
As education, just 2. Yeah, as far as vultures in Arizona go, well, in North America, there are three vultures that are found in North America. Turkey vulture is the most common. It's found all over the place. Second is the black vulture, which is found in the southern part of Arizona, New Mexico, parts of California, down into Mexico itself and Central America. And then we have the California condor, which has been reintroduced up at the Grand Canyon. And we obviously don't have a California condor as an education bird, but we are the people that they bring up to when they run into trouble.
The birds that eat ammunition, is that still
All
a
of
huge
it.
problem?
It's still a huge problem, and we'll talk about that at the end.
So we had our 2 diurnal birds out earlier, daytime birds. Now here is a barn owl, a nocturnal bird.
Beautiful.
So this is Henry. She came to us back in 2006, and she is like Bailey, an imprint. Somebody tried to raise her as a pet when she was younger, and then by the time she went to a hospital in Bullhead City, she had already been imprinted, and that is an irreversible act. These birds are not going to try to mate with other birds, interact with other birds. They are, as Peggy had mentioned, reliant on humans, and so that's why Henry is with us. So barn owls, they're found just like the peregrines all over the world, every continent except Antarctica. These type of birds, they like marshlands, grassland. They're big in the agricultural areas, hence the name barn owl. They've been known to be living up in the lofts of the barns, and what do you think would attract them to a farming land? Mice. These guys love mice, rats, shrews. If it has 4 legs and it's a mouse leg, they love it. They want it. These guys can eat 1.5 times their weight when eating or going for a nightly hunt. And they, like the peregrine too, have some really awesome adaptations to what makes them an excellent hunter. You could kind of hear with Bailey, whenever he flapped, you could hear his wings. Now try to listen to a barn owl. Silent. And so, being at night, they want to be able to sneak up on their prey, because at night there's less hustle and bustle, less noise going on. Silence is going to help with that sneak attack up on their prey.
Sarah, I'll pass around these feathers. This is a great horned owl feather, but the structure is the same as with the barn owl. You can see how they're very loosely held together, so it allows air to pass through. There is a ragged, okay, I'll get it. There's a ragged edge on the back. It breaks up the turbulence as the wind goes by it. So if you feel this feather, you'll feel the difference. Okay, can you hear that? You hear that? Yeah. Okay. This is from a turkey vulture. The feathers very tightly held together, each individual vein, and that allows them the ability to soar. These guys can't soar because their feather structure is so different. So you pass those around.
Can he go? How fast can he go?
I have no idea. They give up, with the soft feather structure, they give up speed for silence. So they are not a fast flyer. They are an ambush predator. They'll sit and roost and watch, and when they spot something, then they'll go down and get it. And the prey never knows it's coming because they don't hear them.
They just glide down onto the prey, right?
Yep.
Exactly. And so they have that silent flight, which helps with hunting their prey. And another really cool feature I like about the barn owls is their sense of hearing. They have arguably one of the best senses of hearing in the animal kingdom. These guys have been known to memorize prey noises to help differentiate between the types of prey that are made available to them. And their ears, you tell ours, they're pretty even on both sides of our faces. These guys, they're asymmetrical, so they're going to have one up by the eye on one side and one down by the beak on the other side. And the reason for that is triangulation. So basically what you'll see an owl doing, especially something like a barn owl, you'll see the head moving back and forth. And that's it trying to focus on something. It's basically moving its head around to pinpoint the sound into its ears so it can see exactly where it's at. And that disc, that beautiful heart shape that you see on Henry here, that's a facial disc, which also helps funnel the sound into her ears so she can hear better at what's around her. And so not only do they have that facial disc to put the sound in, but at night, or I guess daytime, for example, when they're trying to sleep, there's a lot of noise in the daytime. So those feathers down the middle of her face by her beak, she'll part them. So it funnels the sound out, away from her, so they can have a little more peaceful sleep during the daytime. They also have a special cone-like structure on their middle toe, and that's there to comb the feathers in the face in perfect place so they can hear at their best. You know, if something is off, it's going to throw the sound off when they're pinpointing. So being able to comb everything and keep everything nice and neat, it allows her hearing to be even better when it's ready for her to hunt.
Are those feathers or is it the hair?
All feathers. They're just very fine, downy feathers. And they go all the way down. Even her feet have some little straggly feathers on them. And that's also to help with the silence. You know, it's a block. It helps all the way down from the tip of her head. Even owls have feathers on their eyelids. They're just completely covered with those downy feathers because they need to be silent as they're hunting. They got those long legs too to go through snow and vegetation. They can hear mice under that snow and vegetation that they're hearing, so they can go down, grab it, pull it back up, and take it home to eat.
Are they the only bird with their eyes in front? Instead of, don't a lot of birds have like vision that looks on both sides? But it looks like.
The owls, they have, because of that facial disc, their eyes are a little more centered, for example, compared to like a hawk that you would see. Owls, though, what they have is 14 vertebrae in their neck. In fact, all birds of prey have 14 vertebrae. We only have 7. So they have 2 times the amount of vertebrae that we do, giving them more neck rotation. We have about 180. You can look from side to side pretty well.
It's 360.
270 actually. 360. It looks like 360 because they can turn 270 one way, 270 the other way very quickly, giving the illusion of 360.
That makes up for their eyes being something.
Exactly. The eyes are fixed in the head for the birds of prey, so those extra vertebrae allow for them to look around. Hawks, falcons, they're about 210 degrees, so owls definitely have the biggest rotation when it comes to their neck movement. So they need that to be able to
They can
see.
even turn their head completely upside down. It's funny to watch them do it.
We saw an owl nesting in a saguaro. Would that have been a barn owl?
The barn owl, they want to be more hidden cavities, cliff dwellings, cavities, really hidden inside trees or even buildings. It could have been, I know great horned owls have been seen nesting on saguaros. Great horned owls, they're going to have the tufts, hence the great horn name, and they're going to be some more browns, grays, and blacks. These guys, they're lighter. They're not going to be coming out at dawn and dusk like a great horned owl will be. These like to hang out when it's a little bit darker. And so that also helps. They don't have a lot of predators because they come out later at night. The occasional great horned owl might give them a hard time. They'll delay their hunting if they know a great horned owl is in the area. But otherwise they like to come out when it's a little darker at night. And we kind of talked earlier about how the peregrines had the DDT poisoning, which affected their populations. Barn owls, because they do prey or use mice as prey so much, pesticide poisoning in rats and mice, it's a big issue for these guys. Because of course, if a mouse is poisoned, it's not going to die right away. It will scamper out in the open. It gets sick. It gets weak. It doesn't really know what to do. So an owl, for example, is going to see a big fat mouse right out in the open, and it's going to say, "Easy prey. I'm going to go for it." But then that poison, it builds up in that rat system, and then it builds up even more in the owl system. And so they can get sick and they can die. These guys, they are nature's pest control. They're there to hunt the mice, to hunt the rats. You can't get any better than these guys when it comes to a nice organic pest control. And I know there are some wine companies based out in California who don't use any pesticides in their vineyards. They actually have built nest boxes for kestrels, which is a small falcon, and barn owls as their natural pest control for their wines. And so, like I said, this is nature's pest control, just like turkey vultures is nature's garbage control. They're all there for a reason, and they all come together very nicely in both the day birds and the night birds.
It's beautiful.
Any other questions about Henry?
Can I have
Lord would kill you, right? You don't even think about it.
It's like you woke me up. This is my nap time. Yeah, that's true. What do you want?
It's funny, we named this bird Henry. We've had her since she was little. We thought it was a male. With most of these birds of prey, it's difficult, if not impossible, to tell the boys from the girls because the color of their plumage is the same. So this one, usually it's just the size that's the difference. The females are bigger than the males. So this one we thought for a long time was a boy, and then, what, 2 years ago? She laid 5 eggs. So Henrietta became Henrietta, and I still call it a him when I'm doing presentations. No, they were infertile because she didn't have a roommate. We don't do any deliberate breeding at Liberty. We don't have competitions.
Got enough birds already.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's okay. We've got a couple of reptiles. You want reptiles? Sure. All right.
Just don't look up here.
Just a look. We'll let this one out to run around. It can chase you down.
Is it a rattler?
She didn't say.
I don't think you have to worry about not running this home. This is Grandpa. Gramps, how you doing? This is a wonderful desert tortoise. We don't know exactly how old he is. We do know that we've had him for probably 16, 18 years.
Wow.
And they can live into their, well over 60. These guys are native to the Southwest. They live in tunnels and burrows that they dig. They're strictly vegetarians. He'll eat all kinds of grasses and sedges and cactus fruit and seeds. These guys, we almost lost all of our desert tortoise population back in the 70s. They were getting really pretty hard to find due to habitat loss and destruction, and also because people were finding desert tortoises when they were out hiking in the desert, taking them home, keeping them as pets, playing with them. And what they discovered is these guys are capable of contracting human cold viruses, respiratory viruses. And what was happening is people would have them as pets, they'd catch the cold, get the cold desert tortoise, they release the tortoise takes that virus back out to the wild population. So we lost a lot of them to respiratory viruses.
He does move, right?
He does move. He's just not in the mood right now. You ought to see him when it's springtime breeding season and there's a female tortoise on the property. He moves very quickly. But now it's illegal to take these guys out of the desert.
Oh, good.
And it's illegal once they have been in human in captivity within human control. It's illegal to put them back out into the desert again because we don't want them spreading that respiratory virus.
We have a woman here in church that has a
So these guys, you can have them. Arizona, you can get a permit to keep one from Arizona Game and Fish. They have to come out and inspect your property and make sure that you have a proper safe setup for them. And you can adopt a tortoise. So that is why, although Grandpa is completely healthy now, he came to us a long time ago, and I don't even know why. Do you? I don't think I've ever had anybody tell us why he came into us. He doesn't have any shell damage or anything, so he wasn't attacked by a dog, which happens frequently. But anyway, so he's a permanent resident of our education department. If you're lucky enough to see these guys when you're out walking around in the desert, by all means stand back and admire them and think how wonderful they are. The worst thing you could do, though, is ever pick them up for any reason, even if it's just to see what they look like underneath. Don't pick them up, don't disturb them. These guys are designed to survive in the desert, to survive the lack of water for months at a time. What they do is when it does rain, and they do have access to standing water, they'll literally soak themselves in it and drink as much as they can. And that water is stored internally in their bladder. And the design is that water that's stored in their bladder recirculates through their system. So that's how they survive the dry months. Now what they'll do to help protect themselves when they feel threatened is pee. So they've lost all of their water. So if you pick up a desert tortoise and he voids his water and then you put him back down again, you've probably killed that tortoise because he doesn't have the reserves then to wait until the next water is available. Sarah's got another.
We have Yang here. He is a gopher snake, not a rattlesnake, promise. Don't worry, not bringing any of those around here. But he does have rattlesnake mimicry. And I'll bring him down the center just in case, nobody wants to get too close. But he has those beautiful brown markings that you see, the blotches on top of him. That is there for that rattlesnake mimicry. And they even have, you can kind of see his tail, a striped tail to mimic the rattles of a rattlesnake. And when these guys feel threatened, they'll make their head really flat and triangular shaped, like a viper or a rattlesnake. And they'll actually thump that tail against a hard surface to make a noise to trick the predator that's trying to hunt him to think that he is a rattlesnake.
You guys can go on, if those of you who like computers and looking up information, you can go on and do a search, a Google search for gopher snake and rattlesnake. And there's a YouTube video on there that actually will show a threatened gopher snake doing his best to imitate a rattlesnake. And it's convincing. It really is convincing. I had a girlfriend that lived in Santa Rosa, California that had the whole fire station out to get the rattlesnake out of her backyard. And she knows animals, and it ended up being a gopher snake. So they was very good.
And gopher snakes, just like the name, they will eat gophers, rats, other type of rodents. They have been known also to go for rabbits and birds as well. They also like eggs, so these guys can climb trees. They will climb up palm trees. In fact, I know the neighbor to Liberty Wildlife, some workers were working on her yard, found a nice 6-foot-long gopher snake hanging out in the palm tree when they went to climb up and trim some branches. So that was a nice surprise for them. And this guy, he's been with us for about 12 years, and we're actually not quite sure, there's not a definitive number about how long these guys can live in the wild, but being captive, they do typically tend to live longer, and so it could be 25 to 30 years, I think, was the date that we were able to define for this guy.
How long is this one?
He is 6 feet, was the last time we take the sheddings that they do, and we measured those out. So these guys, they shed several times a year, and they will shed more being in captivity than they would in the wild.
Why can't he be released?
Just like the tortoises, once they are captive and somebody's held on to them, there are diseases that they don't want to introduce to the wild animals, and so for safety, they are kept in captivity. And so that was the same case with him. He actually came with another gopher snake who were being kept as a pair of pets, and then they donated them to us.
He seems to enjoy being held.
Yeah, they enjoy having a nice flat surface to be on, or something that they can curl around.
And that's nice and warm.
Exactly, yes. They are.
Pesticides a threat to farming.
Yeah, I mean they're eating mice and birds and eggs and anything that introduces any kind of roadside insecticide into their system. The top of the line food chain is the one that it concentrates in. So that's true for almost any meat-eating animal, including people.
He has such a beautiful belly.
Oh, aren't they gorgeous?
Oh.
Gorgeous colors.
These guys can come, some of them I've seen that are very, very pale, kind of a sandy brown and black color. He's a very pretty one. He's more the darker yellow. Some parts, they're found all over the United States. Some parts of the U.S. they're called bull snakes or pine snakes, I think is another name for them.
Are they in urban areas or just out in the desert?
No, they're all over. They're all over, and they're very, very beneficial snakes to have around. They really are wonderful rodent control. Unfortunately, they're too good at imitating rattlesnakes, and there are too many people who are just kind of inherently afraid of snakes, and they often will end their lives at the end of a shovel or a hoe, which is really too bad because they're very, very beneficial animals to have around. This is one of the critters here. We couldn't let you touch the birds, but we can let you touch the snake if you want. Those who want to, she can walk around with it. When you touch a snake, their scales grow in one direction, from their head toward their tail. So you always want to stroke them in the direction that their scales grow. So from the head toward the tail, on that direction up here. Don't try to touch the head, although this is a very nice snake, is not likely to bite you. We would rather have you not touch the head, okay?
Would it bite?
Oh yeah, they have teeth. This snake's been handled his entire life. And then anytime you touch a cold-blooded reptile, it's always very important to wash your hands very thoroughly. Because they are cold-blooded, their digestive system is very slow, which allows things like salmonella bacteria possibly to develop. So I have hand sanitizer here. If you want to touch the snake, feel free, and I'll bring hand sanitizer for you that you have to use. Touch the snake. Touch the snake.
Anybody over here want to touch it? No? Anybody over here? These guys, now they're not endangered. I don't know, are they on a concerned species?
No, these aren't on a concerned species list. They're pretty widespread. They go anywhere from sea level up to about 9,000 feet. This is the largest, heaviest bodied snake that we have here in Arizona. They grow up to be 8 feet long. They continually grow throughout their lifetime. Did you touch? No. Depending on how much food is available, how much food.
Are these the snakes that the Native Americans dance with?
I have no idea.
Because I know. Well, when you said bull snake,
bull snake,
because there are dances that
it may very well be said.
Oh, neat. Hi, baby.
he seems to like you.
Yes. That's because I smell like dogs.
Their tails don't rattle. is that right?
No, what they
make
do,
a noise by
they have very rapid, fast twitch muscles in their tails. So what they do is they put their tail down and whatever
Everybody
the
always
substrate
thinks they are.
is.
That,
Like
you
gravel,
constantly
they vibrate it. Like gravel or
You can do this, Kathy.
grasses.
The rattle has
the other way.
And in the tail, these guys, they vibrate the tail so fast and it creates that rattling sound. And you can go on YouTube.
I know, they don't
feel, and they look and sound like a rattlesnake. Yes, they do. Did you see his little tongue hanging out? Okay, they have nostrils that they use.
Not what you
Their sensory organ for smelling is located on the roof of their mouth. It's a little tip, a little impression on the top of their mouth. It's called a Jacobson's square. So what they do is they captures molecules and
My kids had that.
aren't they wonderful? They're beautiful snakes.
These other snakes?
These guys, I'm guessing opportunistically, they can. The snake that's, anybody else here touch? No. The snake that's known for eating other snakes that's native to this area is called the king snake.
Yeah.
Common king snake, Sonoran king snake. We've got several varieties that live here, mountain king snakes. They eat any other snakes. In fact, they seem to be immune to rattlesnake venom. I don't know how or why, but they will even eat rattlesnakes. I have a beautiful big king snake that lives in the wash in front of my house. He's about that long, black and white, black and cream colored banded. And I've had to threaten the guys that come in and do my yard with death and dismemberment if they do anything to harm my snake.
Yeah.
Because the area we live in, we do have a lot of rattlesnakes, and I have never once seen a rattlesnake on my property.
Yeah, because
he takes care to eat them.
Yeah.
Are these the snakes that they make the belts out of?
Oh, they make belts out of everything. Don't get me started. I have no idea. They make belts out of rattlesnakes.
That's why I asked about extinction.
Yeah. No, more of them are killed than should. We lose more because people tend to kill them, mistaking them for rattlesnakes. So.
Aren't there some owls that will?
Yeah, great horned owls will eat snakes. Great horned owls and red-tailed hawks both are what we call generalists when it comes to what they'll eat. Anything they think they're capable of catching and killing and eating, they will, which includes snakes. I've seen red-tailed hawks go down and get a snake, and if it's a big heavy snake, it's hard for them to fly over, they'll go straight up and they'll drop it. And then go down and get it after it's dead. Great horned owls will get them at night. Yes.
Along 17, I think it's like up at Deer Park or whatever that place is, the 101. There is a female teenage penitentiary, and I've been told that they take in damaged.
There is Adobe Mountain, which is a part of Game and Fish that is up in that area. That's probably what you're referring to. I am not aware of any of the juvenile detention centers that are licensed to handle wildlife. It's probably Adobe Mountain.
It's just right next door.
It's right next door. Yeah. Okay, I'd like, if you guys, do you want to give us another 5 minutes? Sure. Can we talk trash?
You have time.
Love to talk trash. You don't have time? Okay, well, we got the fun stuff now. This is a little bit of I don't want to call it lecture time, but it kind of really is. There's a lot of injuries that we see on a regular, if not daily basis, on a regular basis at Liberty Wildlife that are entirely caused by people and prevented in the same way. We can prevent those injuries. One of the biggest things that are problems for animals are things that they can become entangled in. This is the number one. Plastic bags. You see this out floating around all over the place. Okay? Sarah's going to walk around with some pictures. This is a beautiful red-tailed hawk that's still flying, but look close at the picture. Look at its wing here and look at its head. It's got a plastic bag. How long do you think that bird stayed airborne? Not long. So the best thing that you can do for yourself and the environment is to keep as many plastics out of that environment as you possibly can. Use your reusable cloth bag when you go grocery shopping if you can.
These are recyclable.
And these are recyclable. So if you do it, and everybody will end up with plastic bags at home at one time or another, save them, take them back, put them in the recycle bin at the grocery store. Don't put them in the landfills. And if you absolutely have to throw away, and even before you put them in the recycle bin, anytime you throw it away or recycle it, before you put it in that bin, knot it up. Several times in a real hard knot, cut the loops on the handles. That way, if it blows out of the garbage truck, it's going to end up on the ground, but it has enough weight to stay where it landed instead of being picked up like a kite and flown out into the desert, out in these animals' habitat. Oh, we get them in all the time. We get them in all the time. All the time. Yeah. All the time. Anything that can entangle animals is deadly. I'll talk a little bit about fishing. First I'll talk about this. Okay, here's a sea turtle, an endangered sea turtle. And he's been trying to eat what he probably thought was a jellyfish floating around in the ocean. It's a piece of plastic. The marine mammals that biologists find up dead, washed up ashore, when they do a necropsy, like an autopsy on them, they'll cut open their gut to see what they've been eating. And 9 times out of 10, they're full of plastics. Okay? So it's really, really important to reduce the plastics that you use and recycle the plastics that you do end up with at home. Another thing that is a huge problem with entanglement is fishing line. Anything that fishing line, kite string, whatever, but fishing line in particular is horrible because you think about where fishing line is used in riparian areas, right? Along rivers, creeks, streams, lakes. What birds and animals eat and hunt around there? Golden eagles, ospreys, peregrine falcons, all of these birds. Especially the fish-eating birds like ospreys and the bald eagles. You're out fishing, they catch there's a fish that got caught on a line, breaks the line, gets away with it. Bird goes down, grabs that fish, takes it up, and feeds it to his family, leaves it in his nest. A lot of birds will pick up fishing line and think it's a good thing to make a nest out of because it's pliable and they weave it in, and the babies never leave the nest because they get entangled in the stuff and die right away. The second, you can't prevent it if your fish breaks the line and gets away, but the thing that you can help prevent is lead poisoning by switching to non-lead fishing sinkers or non-lead ammunition for your rifles or your handguns. Lead is a huge problem for wildlife, and it is a huge problem for people if you stop and think about it. If you're shooting with lead ammunition, if you get a deer, my dad used to go deer hunting all the time. I'm not anti-hunting or anti-fishing in any way. But when you shoot an animal like a deer or an elk with a lead bullet, that lead is very soft, and the velocity that the bullet hits the animal with is spinning, and as it goes through that carcass, it's hitting bones and tissues and stuff, and it's shearing off minute particles of lead all the way through that are literally microscopic pieces of lead. So you not only are leaving lead behind in gut piles that animals scavenge on like any of these guys, where they ingest lead, but you're also feeding lead to your family. I've seen x-rays of meat that was professionally packaged, prepared meat of the venison of a deer that Dr. Orr took an x-ray of, and it looked like it had little pepper flakes scattered throughout it. So you're ingesting that lead too. Now we're much bigger creatures and we can tolerate more lead, but even a piece of lead the size of a pencil tip can bring down an adult bald eagle or a condor. And in the last 2 years, we've treated how many? 6 condors, something like that are brought down from the Vermilion Cliffs from lead poisoning. Primarily from lead ammunition, occasionally from lead sinkers. People go out varmint hunting, you know, they'll shoot gophers or ground squirrels or whatever, leave them lay. Animals will come and scavenge it, they'll ingest that lead, and will kill them. And it's really a needless way to die. It's sad. Sad. Anything else you want to talk about?
For some of the plastic that she was mentioning, you also have the 6-pack holders, the soda cans, you know. Animals in the ocean, they can get a fin stuck in it, then they can't swim. But animals on land too, they can get paws stuck in it, snouts stuck in it. In fact, we had a gray fox, I believe, that came into Liberty. Its legs were all tangled up in the soda can, and we had to cut him free. And he was very weak from not being able to eat. He wasn't hunting, and so we recommend, if you have anything like this, cut the rings so that it can't become tangled, it can't stick a head or anything like that in there. There's also these yogurt cups. If you ever go camping or anything like that and you have garbage like this, animals, raccoons, you know, those who will go into garbage, they will stick a snout in here to try to lift the bottom of the yogurt to get what you missed. However, that creates a suction, and that yogurt cup or other container can actually get stuck on their snouts, and then they're not going to be able to breathe, or they're not going to be able to eat, and they can actually starve themselves that way. And so we recommend too, if you have some type of container that a snout can get stuck into, cut it so then it can still, you know, get to that inside that it wants, but it won't get stuck, and he'll be able to be free. And just a couple
Even
other
if you're
tips.
recycling it, cut it up like that, because things fall out of recycling garbage trucks, and they're not on the environment. Just start being aware, start looking around at your environment and the things that you leave behind out in these animals' habitat. Because we share their habitat with us. We didn't give them any choice. We moved into it, and we altered it, and we changed it. Simple things. It's been probably 5 or 6 years ago around Halloween time, somebody brought in a little flammulated owl. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them, but they're the cutest darn things you ever saw. They're about this big, and they've got these big black eyes. They're strictly nocturnal. They're insect hunters, and they migrate through here in the fall, spring and the fall. And they brought in this little flammulated owl that was completely entangled in fake Halloween webbing that somebody had put out as a decoration at Halloween. And so we trimmed it, we got it all taken off of him, and he had his little talons all clutched tight, and he pried open his talons to check his feet, and inside one foot was a black plastic spider. So he had been out doing exactly what he was supposed to do, which is hunt insects at night, and got himself all tangled up. I've seen great horned owls come in completely tangled up in kite string because somebody lost a kite up in the tree. Balloons. Have you ever seen people let helium balloons go, having a celebration? Woo, let's let them go. Makes me crazy because what goes up is going to come down. They can go up to heights of, like for the airliners, up to 25,000, 35,000 feet, and get carried long ways on air currents. They're huge. Plastics are a huge problem in the oceans because so many animals get entangled in them or mistake them as prey, like jellyfish. Even little rubber balloons, party balloons, that are ones that kids have balloon fights with in the summertime. Make sure you pick up all of those little pieces of balloon out of the grass. Don't let them leave it behind. Seed-eating birds think it's a bug. It gets caught in their windpipe. They can't breathe. Yes.
We were on a cruise crossing the Atlantic, and we had a naturalist talk. And he was talking about each section of the ocean as we passed over it. And we passed by one area that he said it's where all the plastics go.
The currents converge.
And it's about the size of Texas.
Yeah. It is. There's a really interesting book that I just bought that's called Toxic Ocean or something like. I don't remember the name of it. I just ordered it. But it's about a guy who has studied the Pacific, Western or Eastern Pacific gyre out there where the currents comes together.
South of Hawaii.
Yeah, and it contracts and it expands depending on the weather systems and the currents are going through. But the plastics, what happens is they break down to their polymer form in the ocean. So they break down to very, very, very small pieces. But they hang together, and they'll go as low as 15, 20 feet in depth. Just hanging suspended in the water there. A lot of fish see these garbage piles as a nursery, because they use floating rafts or racks of seaweeds and stuff to lay their eggs in to protect them. Well, they're using these garbage things the same way. And a lot of the little fish are ingesting these polymer, particles that are causing all kinds of physical deformities, and it just goes on and on and on. So, reduce, reuse, recycle. Keep it out of the environment.
What is your organization's mission statement? I thought it was so cool.
I'm going to have to get that off of it.
Something about balancing the...
Yeah, to nurture the nature of Arizona. It's our goal to... I ought to know this off the top of my head. Do we have that? I'm embarrassed. I really am. I mean, my face is going to turn red. Paraphrase it. To basically nurture the nature of Arizona, to lessen the negative impact that we as people have on wildlife, and to learn to appreciate it for its beauty and its benefits.
Speaking of that, in Flagstaff about a month ago, they were talking about the poisoning of the gophers or something.
Oh yeah, that's horrible. Yeah.
Is that's going to negatively impact all that?
Absolutely. You want to talk about that? You want me to jump in? Whatever. Okay. Yeah, anytime you're using insecticides or rodenticides, you are causing secondary poisoning on up the food chain. It's inevitable. You cannot avoid it. I still have a pest control guy come to my house once a week because we live in an area that's infested with scorpions, and I have a son who is very allergic to them. But all I have them do is use the diatomaceous earth around the thresholds on my house that will kill the animals when they cross that barrier to come into my house. I don't spray out in my garden and stuff. I avoid the use of it if at all possible. Inside my home, yeah, I have them spray the bug killer around my floorboards to keep the scorpions out of my house. So just think about your use and how you use your pesticides. People in a lot of areas, especially the Arcadia area here in Arizona, where they have all the fruit trees, probably the same thing is true down in the East Valley of Mesa and Chandler, where they had all the orange groves, have a huge problem with roof rats, which is an imported invasive species of rats that cause really a lot of problems. Well, unfortunately, and I don't know why, they still give out haze-gated poison traps for roof rats. Well, what's hunting roof rats? Birds of prey. And they get a lot of secondary poisonous in them. So, try to avoid use of it. If you've got, I had pack rats in my garage, the mess they made. I ended up using a live trap to catch them, and then I relocated them somewhere out in the desert. If you have to, if you've got a mouse in your kitchen that you can't live trap, then get out a snap trap. Snap with very little nets. It's a quick, sudden death, but you're not using poison. Poison because it's a lot of price sometimes.
And I know there are some websites such as nature.org or the Nature Conservancy. They have directions where you can build nest boxes for your backyard. You can get smaller ones for the little birds, the little kestrels, the little owls, or even bigger ones. And you can place that in your backyard, and that's going to be right there, the pest control, your nature pest control, like we talked about earlier. So that's another option too, to reach out beyond having to resort to any chemicals or traps or anything like that, is there are some of those nest box diagrams that are available online.
If you have screech owls and bats and kestrels, you've got the daytime and the nighttime shift, they're going to eat a lot of those mosquitoes and other insects that you want to get rid of. You've got your owls, your hawks, that will take care of a lot of the rodents. Snakes will take care of a lot of rodents. So it's just balance. We just need to learn how to keep things in balance, and we haven't been very good at it.
Well, we want to thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Did I keep my promise?
So you guys have an excellent website.
Oh, thank you.
If you guys find anything and you don't know what to do with it, call them.
Give us a call. We've got a hotline that you can get in touch with 24 hours a day. So we'll help you. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
I wish we could, but we need to get the figures back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it. Good. I want to tell you about the story.